Welcome to AudioCam with Cam Scotland. My name's Scott Docherty and I'm here today with Ewan Malcolm, Chief Executive of Relate London North West. Amongst other things, he established the Scottish Mediation Network in 2002. He's the author of numerous excellent publications on mediation, and he also regularly provides training to mediators with consensus as well. So welcome, Ewan.
Hello, Scott. Good to be here.
And just for the avoidance of doubt, I chat today with Ewan, who is in London at the moment, using the medium of Skype, and it's quite apt, given our topic today is online mediation. So, talking about online mediation, throughout history, Ewan, parties in dispute have tended to meet somewhere to resolve things. I'm thinking about on the field of battle, or in the courtroom, or even round the kitchen table sometimes. So, you've been involved a little in online mediation, and I'm just wondering how things are different with online mediation.
So online mediation naturally doesn't put you in the same space so you can feel the air and, I suppose, smell the fear in a situation like the ones that you're describing. But in other respects, it gives you as many and sometimes additional benefits. Most importantly, we find with mediation, the hardest bit is getting people together to talk. And I think that having online, by which I mean communicating in mediation via the internet and usually using some sort of video link via the internet, allows people the opportunity to get together when there might be barriers in the way, distance, time, scheduling, all of that. So the difference is, obviously, you're not in the same room, but you are speaking simultaneously, communicating in exactly the same way that you would if you were around that kitchen table. You don't speak much on the field of battle, obviously.
Well, obviously.
But I think when we're talking about a process of communication, which at its foundation is what mediation is all about, this tool adds an additional means by which we can facilitate that discussion.
So really, online mediation, you think, is most useful to reconcile geographical difficulties then? Thinking there might be possibly other uses for it as well, for example, in issues where you don't want to be in the same room as that other person.
I think you're spot on, Scott. We have found, both in practice and also in simulation, that people who have a reticence about coming together with the other, in family, the ex, say, who you really feel strongly you don't want to spend much time with, there is a sort of sense of security about speaking down the line rather than being just a couple of feet away from them sitting in the next chair.
Yes.
And that, I think, is a real advantage of this. Now, of course, the mediator has to be careful because that could also create a distance which prevents a proper communication. But if you and I agree, and I think most mediators find the hardest bit is getting people in the room, it might be a way of starting that conversation. We've also found in this service that it's a way of keeping the conversation going. So people might be able to come together first, but then it becomes so difficult that they then would separate. And rather than doing what we call shuttle or caucus mediation, where people are speaking to the mediator in one room and then running along the corridor to the next room, they can continue with mediation via the use of the internet. And then another bit that I think it helps on is that people sometimes, for kind of their own personal circumstances, just can't stay. So somebody's posted abroad, and this is a way of continuing the mediation when it needs to be continued, but people aren't in the same place at the same time.
Yes. Now, online mediation, I understand, and feel free to correct me, has developed less so in relation to family situations and more in relation to commercial scenarios, for example, business disputes and so on. And I can see down south small claims mediation more and more often these days is being resolved through online dispute resolution methods. What's different looking at it from a family situation, dealing with two people who have been together as loving partners and are now separating. Do you think the ability of online mediation to resolve commercial disputes can also translate into that kind of situation?
Well, the translation, I think, is possible. However, let's maybe parse out some of the terms here. I think there is a difference between online mediation, which is the whole process of mediation, from the initial discussions through to the convening of people together, the agenda setting, and then the option generation and all of that sort of stuff, via some sort of video link, and online dispute resolution, which I think is being used in some settings, the most famous of which is eBay, where they have something like 4 million disputes every year. Biggest dispute resolvers, operation called Modria, resolve those. And essentially, they do it by text quickly. It's a sort of arbitration. A very effective, very useful approach.
Yes.
Now, that is ODR, online dispute resolution, different from the whole mediation that we're imagining. Now, could we learn some of the things from the ODR? Yes, of course. And in fact, I would say that because I work with an organisation called Relate in England and Wales, and we're working with Modria and an operation in the Netherlands to create a tool which will be useful in this jurisdiction for people who want to do a bit of the stuff online before they get into mediation. So could they go through a series of questions and tick yes or no for a number of areas, put in some free text and work out what is agreed and what is not. And then when you find the areas that are not agreed, clicking on mediation and setting up a video conference so that they can talk through that specific narrow issue,
yes,
rather than doing the whole lot. And I think that sort of efficiency is really useful, and it's already happening in Holland.
Sure. So, thinking of family mediation online then, what do you think are the main concerns that you would come across for parties going into that?
So I think the main concern that mediators have is to maintain the confidentiality of the mediation process. Now, it's something that we're thinking very hard about at the moment in Scotland with the recent Court of Session judgment about the mediation confidentiality. Clearly, we cannot promise that everything that goes on in mediation will be completely secure. But I think the thing that people most worry about is, let's put it crudely, a clip from a mediation appearing on YouTube.
Yes.
Let's be absolutely frank, it is not possible to prevent that completely. But I think we need to do all that we would normally do with a mediation, by way of explaining the importance of confidentiality, getting people to sign up to a confidentiality agreement, ensuring that nobody else is going to breach that in this setting, which will make it nigh on, well, not impossible, but extremely unlikely that people would do something like that.
Yes.
To find out how mediation can help you, follow us at CAM Scotland on Twitter, Facebook and Google+, or visit camscotland.co.uk.
So confidentiality is a big concern, but one which you're quite comfortable can be addressed and so on. What about, are there any other fears? For example, the one that springs to mind is, how do you know that someone else isn't in the room with the person you're speaking with?
Well, simply put, you ask people, and if people have agreed that no one else would be in the room, it becomes pretty obvious when someone else is. And I would be suggesting that a standard clause in a contract would say that if a mediator suspects that there is any kind of breach of the confidentiality that people have signed up for, then that mediator would terminate the mediation. Absolutely standard in a normal mediation practice. And again, I think we're looking for problems which I haven't experienced in reality. Folk who come to mediation using online tools are usually pretty comfortable with those tools already. Maybe they do business using Skype or one of the other tools like Zoom regularly, or they have family overseas.
Yes.
People who have grandchildren in Australia, for instance, are usually pretty smart at using this approach and know that once you have a connection with the other person, the way that you look at the picture, the way you set up the equipment is just technical stuff which then becomes invisible once you're speaking to people directly.
Yes. Well, certainly it's quite an interesting point. I was reading today that apparently 1 in 4 adults in the UK don't have basic online skills. And the concern I've seen before about online mediation and even ODR, as you were talking about, is that people are wondering whether technology and understanding of technology might get in the way.
I think that that's a really important point. However, I would say it is not about being exclusive, it's about being expansive. This is a tool that would be used and only suitable, essentially, with folk who feel comfortable with it. I think that people who have no interest or experience in the online environment are unlikely to say yes to the voluntary process of mediation via the internet. However, let's look at the demographics. That's where we are just now. Maybe a quarter of people have no connection. But say in 20 years' time, when those 5-year-olds or even 10-year-olds who will swipe a book to turn the page gets to being our clients, then this will just be normal, and folk will be used to this approach. I think the resistance, quite understandably, is likely to come from the practitioners rather than the clients. And there will be some folk who will adopt it, embrace it even, and others will say, no, it's not for me. I'm not promoting it as an alternative. I'm saying this is an addition.
Yes, that's right. And thinking of those practitioners that are possibly reticent about it, one of the main issues I've heard discussed about online mediation is the non-verbal communication. It's how vitally important it is being in a room and understanding what's going on from body language and the various signals that people give off when not talking. And I'm wondering how that might be addressed in online mediation.
I think that you're right that it will never be as good as being in the same room. However, there are certain things that we can do to improve the ability to check things out. For the start, if the lighting is correct and the camera setup is good, you probably are doing more face-to-face, more clearly face-to-face than you would be if you were sitting in the same room. So you're getting a lot of expression. And if the resolution on your connection is good enough, and that is a big if, and your screen is large enough, I tend to work at home and throw the screen up on my big TV, so I actually see people larger than life. Quite easy to do if you just connect your computer.
Yes.
Then you're getting a very, very clear picture of the individual's face. And again, the body language people tell us that it's the micro expressions on our face that we really take a lot of meaning from. Of course, stance and posture and all the rest is important, but less important when you're getting the nuanced, fine detail of the meaning.
Yes.
So you get used to it. There is something also about being. It's a bit disconcerting when you first start doing this, but being able to see yourself as a mediator in the little screen at the bottom. I think that. As a reflective practitioner, for me, that's a great boon.
Yes.
It means that I get some idea of how I'm coming across to the parties, which I don't when I'm in the room. I will only get a chance at getting a second-hand view of that when I'm working with a co-mediator. But on my own, all I'm doing is looking at the other party.
That's right. Almost just a mirror as far as that's concerned, yes.
Exactly.
So coming back to what I said earlier about how dispute resolution's moved on from the battlefield in the courtroom and so on, where do you see this going, online mediation, let's say in the next 5 years?
I think that to start with, it will become something that a certain number of practitioners, ones who are comfortable in this field, will make available to the marketplace, and they will start gaining experience. I know in England and Wales there are already people who are doing that. I think that we will also build up an experience of how to make sure that new users of this tool remain safe. And with the English Family Mediation Council, I'm presently working on some guidance for the use of online mediation, and I hope that guidance will become freely available. I mean, frankly, it will be non-specific to a jurisdiction, and I hope also it will be non-specific to the sphere of mediation. Yes. There are some particular things about family mediation that need to be taken account of, but mostly this is about doing the communication stuff we do in mediation across all the different spheres. So that, I hope, will gain some currency and some experience. We'll hopefully also draw from the experience of our colleagues in other places, like specifically Canada and Australia, where they are, because of their distances, using these kind of tools already. And in this next period, I think we will see a significant improvement on the quality of connection, as in the internet connection that we'll have across our country. And that, I think, will make a huge difference. At the moment, you and I are speaking on Skype, and actually the picture quality for me is not that fantastic. And I know exactly why that is, because the connection to my office hasn't yet been upgraded. And I think that once we have that, it should be crystal clear. I usually work from home, and I know I have a really good connection, and I was speaking to people in the States just last night. They could have been sitting in my study there.
Yes.
So once connectivity improves, I think that will make a difference. And then the third bit will be that I think that folk will, with that experience, start talking rather than hypothetically, as we might be doing just now, but starting with experience and see how it could be blended with their existing practice. I don't imagine that people will suddenly become online mediators, and that's the only way that they'll work.
Yes.
I think they'll see how it's slotted into the current way of delivering excellent services to people who need them.
As you say, as an additional service, yes. Well, it's been fascinating talking with you today, Ewan. It's something for the future. More and more people are talking on Skype and Hangouts and so on with their friends and their family. It's only a matter of time, I think, before more and more mediators are coming in on that. So it's been valuable listening to what you have to say on it, and thanks for being with me today.
Great to be with you, Scott. Thanks for this opportunity.
And you've been listening to AudioCam.